Conduct is unacceptable and will not be tolerated. Should any person not wish to be recorded, I advise that they should leave the meeting room prior to any statements being made. Any defamatory statements made are not the position of the council and remain an individual's opinion. Council accepts no responsibility for any defamatory statements, and all liability remains with the person making those remarks. Councillors, I'll call on Councillor Mark Sutherland to do an acknowledgement.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd like to say Yama Day Gomoroi, Wallabang Niani Wunungalaba, Ngamba Mari, Maromara, Ngale Down, Dilia Yanbali, Garna Marius Kaingal Gomoroi, Ngamlanginda, Winalanginda, Winangalawa. And that's the language spoken by our families across here, across Tamworth, making sure that we acknowledge the country that we're on and that we pay respect to old people who have cared and still care for this country. And Mr Mayor, last week was NAIDOC Week, where we celebrated the existence and the presence of Aboriginal people across the country with a theme of For Our Elders. So quickly, I'd just like to acknowledge Granny Munro, Pearl Trindle, Joe Trindle, Bob Faulkner, the late Yvonne Kent, a number of old people who have had a significant impact on the shape of our community. It's true that we stand on the shoulders of giants and we walk in their footsteps. So I'd like to acknowledge them. Thank you, Mr Mayor. Thanks,
Councillor Sutherland. And I would now ask everyone in the room who wishes to stand for the meeting prayer, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Almighty God, we thank you for the men and women of Tamworth Regional Council as they serve and lead our city and region. We ask for courage and wisdom for righteous decisions that will nourish and prosper the region. We pray for decisions of integrity, justice and equity to be at the forefront of their deliberations, and we thank you for their passion and dedication for our region, and we ask you to encourage and empower them in all that they do. Through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen.
Thank you, Pastor James. Council, we'll move on to item 1 on the agenda, apologies and leaves of absence. We do have a written apology from Councillor Southwell requesting leave. Could I have somebody move that be accepted? Councillor Burke, seconded Councillor Mears. All those in favour say aye. Aye. There's no other leaves of absence. Can we move on to item 2, community consultation? We have no registered, I'm quite sure we have no registered people for community consultation. So I'll move on to item 3 and I'll ask for someone to move that the minutes of the previous meeting are true and correct. Councillor Mears, seconded Councillor Tickle. Any comments to be made on the previous minutes? There being no comments, I'll put that recommendation. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Those against, carried. We'll move on to item 4, disclosure of interest. Any disclosures of interest, councillors? There's no disclosures of interest. We'll now move on to item 5, which is a mayoral minute. Councillors, I take it that you've all read the mayoral minute. This is something that's been going on for some time. When I say some time, there has been meetings of mayors following following country mayors meetings in Sydney and in other places, talking about the renewable energy zones and the impact that they have both positively and negatively on our communities. And of course, there hasn't been a lot of engagement from government about what's actually happening. So we're actually trying to we are forming a group, and I'm just suggesting and requesting that we approve the payment of $5,000 as an initial contribution to participate in this. That was a figure that was agreed to by all of the mayors in the quorum as a figure that was needed to have some money to actually form the group and to administer the group and do whatever we needed to do to get that group up and running and allow us to have that administrative support. The Mayor of Armidale is currently the initial chair for the time being and doing a very good job, I might say. But there will be a lot of conversations to be had with government and some of the renewable energy companies, and we all need collectively to engage with those renewable energy companies with some consistency, and I guess that's where this all started. There's no good a council like ours engaging with renewable energy companies talking about what we need for our community, and then Uralla or Walker or Armidale or Glen Innes or, for that matter, Dubbo or Mudgee engage with those same companies and start talking about different ways to give back to the community and pay those, I'll call them like royalties, to help the community grow and prosper. So collectively as an organisation through Quorum, each of the councils that are affected by the renewable energy zone or are impacted in any way, which we're working together to have a collective position and a position of consistency. So I'll call for any comments on that. Councillor Rodder.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'm not 100% whether I can actually support this. Just a bit of background. Renewable energy zones were created by the former state government during the pandemic. There was little reference to rural residents that would be impacted by the government's decision for a lot of those reses. And they failed to undertake any meaningful community consultation during that pandemic. I understand it was difficult during the pandemic to do so, but obviously very important to the residents and also the local government areas impacted by those reses. And I feel that the horse has bolted on the reses, and I believe what our communities need is for their respective councils to understand the impacts of projects to their local government areas, because ultimately a group like this is not going to be able to collectively go to Planning New South Wales to complain about an issue in our backyard, or we can't, or say Armidale Regional Council and so on. We'll have to actually make our own submissions about that, and we have we did a great job with Nundle, the Nundle Wind Farm, but then we didn't do such a great job with Somerton. And obviously on our in the near future, we'll have to make submissions in relation to Loombra and Bendemeer, and obviously other projects within our LGA in the future. And I asked, what good will spending $5,000 of ratepayers on another committee? And keep in mind that it won't be just $5,000, because then there'll be travel at various to various other councils to discuss these issues. And I believe it'll be better for us to focus our attention on ensuring, as a council, that when these projects are announced in our local government area, we make sure that our views are firmly made, that the project is sited in an appropriate location. And in fact, you might recall at the local government conference last year, motion, I think, by Burke Shire Council, unanimously passed by the local government New South Wales, that calling on the government to locate transmission lines in more marginal areas. And obviously they had in mind their backyard, because it's an appropriate place probably for significant solar projects to be in areas of marginal land. And I just think that ultimately that we need to make sure as a council that we're actually doing our best to advocate on behalf of our residents. There might be occasions where we want these projects, but at the same time we always need to take into consideration the impacts and mitigate those impacts. And also we want to know that in the future, when the life of a solar farm or wind farm comes to an end, that there is remediation of those sites, and we're not left with holding a big mess like I guess an unremediated asbestos mine within our local government area. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Rodder. I think most of the things you just talked about really come back to the fact that we can make our own decisions on what's happening locally, but working as a team, we can do what Country Mayor's done, we can do what Regional Cities does. We go to the government and we can actually advocate as a group of quite a lot of councils, not just one. And we're going to have a lot better chance of being listened to if there's a group of us coming up with a consistent approach on how we believe the issues that we all face. We all face the same issues, just to a somewhat differing degree in some cases, but we all face the same issues, whether it be our road networks, whatever it might be, whether it be the transmission lines or whatever. But if we have a consistent position, and that's what this group is all about, having a consistent position to approach government on when we have challenges that we don't want to have to jump over, or hurdles we don't want to jump over. We need help to actually formulate some regulation, and that's probably more than more than likely into the future, will need help to go to the government and advocate for some regulation and strategies to actually manage the problems that we're going to face in the future. Let's be honest about this. This has come to us very quickly, and the government of any persuasion, or either persuasion, has not been prepared for what's happened so quickly. And the timelines that they put on some of these projects are really out of line with reality. But the only way that we can actually approach the government and get a better position for us as a whole, local government as a whole, is to do this collectively, in my opinion. Further comments? Councillor Beth.
Yeah, thanks, Mr Mayor. No, I'll support the Merrill motion. I agree with what Councillor Rod is saying, but I certainly can see what the Mayor's saying and totally agree with that. In my experience in local government, we need to fight like blazes for our own constituents, but we need, as a collective, you are far, far more powerful, because these energy or renewable energy zones that are being forced upon us now, they are not just our council area. They are right across Australia, and we need a bigger collective to make sure that we get it right for everyone, not just a few. And if we do it as a collective, we are far, far more powerful. So, yes, I'll support it, Mr Mayor.
Further comment? Councillor Coates.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I totally agree with Councillor Betts, and I do see the points that Councillor Rodder makes, and I wholly support that. However, I think that as a collective, we've got that power to perhaps not just go bargaining, but maybe to set some baseline minimum standards so that we don't end up with communities fighting against one another because the renewable energy company goes in and says, we'll do this, this and this, knowing full well that they're probably going to negotiate down. And that's, I believe, where a lot of that friction in the community can start. So if it enables us to have a baseline minimum standard of some of the things that are really important to everyone, I totally agree with it. So I support the Merrill Minute as well.
Further comments? Councillor Burke.
Thanks, Mr Mayor, and look, I support your Merrill Minute as well. It's not a lot of money, $5,000. It's limited to a 2-year period. The Secretariat is going to be supported by the current chair, which is the Armidale Mayor. And I think the paragraph that says, given Tamworth's proximity to the New England RES, there's a significant likelihood that renewable energy projects will impact in the Tamworth LGA. Will should be are already. They are already impacting in the Tamworth LGA, and this is not about the rights and wrongs of renewable. But one of the things that's happening is that our communities are divided, and that should never have happened. So hopefully our community LGAs can get ahead of the game and take this to a level where the REZ, the Renewable Energy Zone, was really constructed in a crayon on a map. It wasn't done and around transmission lines, what they thought was low value land. So, there's a whole lot of high value land that's actually being impacted with potential developments, and the proponents have been very active in this area. One of the things that I'd like to see come out of this is more determination earlier on as to what's going on out there in the public domain with regards to the activity before it gets to community consultation level and find that the horse is already bolted. So I'll be supporting the Merrill Minute.
Further comments, councillors?
Thank you, Mr Mayor, and I'd still be supporting the Merrill Minute. I think that the residents of Tamworth Regional Council have made it clear that want to see really proactive approach in our sustainable energy. I think our sustainability strategy reinforces renewables as a priority, and although we're focused as LGA on that, I think that being able to join with the collective of other regional mayors would be able to help to advocate to make sure that we can get the best outcome for our entire community in a way that's going to be productive and beneficial. And I think it's going to add weight into our progress in that space.
Thanks, Councillor Sutherland. Further comments? Councillor Mears.
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor. I can see both sides of the argument here. I am certainly a proponent for the strength of a collective. I'm doing that all my life. But it just depends upon, from my perspective anyway, is who's in government, or if those governments are prepared to listen, whether it's a collective and a vast collective or not. I think that it's for a 2-year period, so I will support the motion, but my concerns are that depending upon the government of the day, if they just simply shut their ears off, then it'll make no difference whatsoever. But I think we at least need to put something on the table to give us a baseline bargaining point.
Thanks, councillor Mears. Just a comment that we've already, in a not formally formed group, but we've already met as a group with the government, and they've actually wanted to meet with us. So there is some stuff happening there. Further comments, councillors? If there's no further comments, I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour say aye.
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 Those against?
No, I'll go aye, Mr Mayor, just because it is just 2 years.
Pardon?
I'll go with the majority. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillors, we'll move on to item 7, footpath dining. Councillor Coates, did you want to move that with some
Do you want me to do that
change?
now?
Because now's the time.
Yep. Mr Mayor, if I could just suggest if we look at the policy and looking in terms of clarifying the area that says on page 10, the last point on the policy implications, no glass to be provided with meals after 9 and from 10 p.m. onwards, no glass to be present in footpath dining. For me, that's been quite confusing, and even having a debate amongst a few people. Could we actually amend that to clarify, perhaps somewhere along the lines as what has already been?
So councillor Coates, you'd like to see no glass to be provided with or without meals after 9 o'clock, and it's in the body of the report. It's actually not in the recommendation, but it's in the body of the report.
Yes.
Thank you.
Implications.
Yeah. Could I have a seconder for that motion, please? Councillor Mears. Councillor Coates, do you want to speak to that now?
Yes, thank you, Mr Mayor. I think it's important to remember that with this, the council are merely providing a change to policy which would then allow licensed venues to obtain a new liquor licence or a variation, and then it's going out to public consultation again. So I think when we actually hear people, and I've read through some of the submissions as to why we shouldn't or shouldn't do this, I think we need to remember that we're just at that point. Also, licensed venues have obligations under state legislation and regulations in regards to responsible service of alcohol. So at the end of the day, they are driven, and their licence can be impacted if they actually don't follow those regulations. If they don't adhere to them, they can actually lose their licence. And my understanding for the last point is that the police will have the final say on how this is actually carried out and overseen. So we are merely just providing that carriage in the beginning to enable that to go on display. And thank you for the amendment.
Thanks, councillor Coates. Just reminding everyone, this is a report that will, if passed, will just go out on public exhibition. Could I ask, is there anyone wishing to speak against the recommendation? Anyone else wish to make comment on the recommendation? Sutherland.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Just want to thank the 269 people who participated in the community consultation. It was great to be able to read so many comments on people's opinion, whether it be whatever their perspective was. I am slightly hesitant in supporting it, although I will, and that is because of the message that it sends potentially of the CBD being potentially unsafer due to the public consumption of alcohol without meals. As a father, I know walking down Peel Street and walking throughout our CBD is a very safe place. And to add the risk of people consuming alcohol more frequently can potentially add more risk to that space. And so I'm interested to see how it goes back on community consultation. If I can just get one piece of clarity, sorry, of staff Jean and possibly Mr Mayor, and that is, one of the dot points is that the areas must be barricaded off. Can I get just a bit more idea on what barricading off might look like?
Through you, Mr Mayor, it could be various ways of barricading it, but it needs to be very clear that it is a separate area and a licensed area, and that is one of the things you've mentioned, that that it will be up to the individual operators to get that licence. And it also needs to allow enough space for the rest of pedestrians to make their way up and down the street.
Thank you.
It would have to be delineated for licensing purposes, so clearly delineated. Further comments, councillors? There being no further comments, I'll put the recommendation. All in favour, say aye.
Aye.
Those against, carried. We'll move from there on to item 8.1, Tamworth Regional Council Entrance Strategy. Move councillor Betts, seconded councillor Mears. Councillor Betts.
Yes, thanks, Mr. An excellent report. I read it a couple of times because it is a very, very important strategy for our community, and it's been a long time coming, this strategy, and it's something that I think will set the scene for the future as far as marketing our brilliant region. I understand that there's no funding at this stage for the implementation of the program, but it's a really good direction of where to go. I was going to request an amendment or an addition, but I've had it since clarified that that's not an issue, which in regard to ensuring that local artists are involved in the formation of the signage, but that's been clarified and it's in the recommendation, in the body of the report, but it's also going to be in the other working groups that are looking at it. It's going to be actually cemented very, very clearly. Just on a bit of a lighter note, a few people have got onto me this week in regards to the population numbers in the centres around, and it's quite old. We've grown a lot, so this will be an opportunity to move forward with reviewing of the opportunity and the statistics of our local wonderful communities. Thanks, Mr Mayor.
Thanks, councillor Betts. Anyone wish to speak against that recommendation? Further comments on the recommendation? We'll start down that end. Councillor.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. It's a lot of money. It's a lot of money discretionally to be spent. I appreciate the fact that we are going to seek grants to do that. But I think it's really important for both Tamworth as such a major regional city, but all of the towns and localities and smaller villages within the greater regional council that we have, they need an uplift as well. And I think that this provides that. It unites us as a one major regional council, and I think exactly what Councillor Betts said, that we need to procure and have as much done locally as we possibly can. But I drive through that Great Gateway roundabout coming to Tamworth, and the realignment of the airport road, and now that airport road being upgraded, and I just see such a wow factor coming to Tamworth. And this is what it needs. It now needs to say, not only show it's a wow factor, but tell the people that we are coming into a city that has a wow factor. And great work, heap of work. And I know it's been going on for a long time. Let's hope that we can get the funding and move along with it.
Thanks, councillor Burke. Councillor Sutherland.
Thank you, Mr Mayor, and I couldn't agree more with councillor Burke. It's great to see the three different aspects of the strategy, and the fact that we're acknowledging a Flora corridor, and we already have a greening strategy with the Melbourne Street management plan, or guide I should say, adds more weight to that space. Public art, much needed across the region, acknowledging in the entrance strategy, it's supported by a public art strategy. I think it just adds more and more weight to being able to get these signage and projects underway. Also, just want to highlight, the milestone of embedding the recognition of traditional owners in signage. Growing up as a young person across the region, one of the conversations I always had coming back into town was, wouldn't it be great if we could have that recognition on signs? And we do currently in some locations, but to have that consistently embedded in our entrance strategy, I think is a monumental step forward and something that really cements the proud identity of Aboriginal people across our region in our entrance strategy.
Councillor Coates.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I totally agree, because our current signage is, in a word, abysmal. And it doesn't actually portray our region as somewhere that's modern or progressive or even cohesive. And a lot of the numbers are out of date. For example, Moonbi still has 500 residents, but in actual fact, it's got over 1,200 now. So I think being able to bring those sorts of things up to date would be really good. But when you actually look at the new signs, as Councillor Burke said, out at the Global Gateway, and you go down into it, and they're clean and they're clear and they're really, really modern. And I think that this is only going to be a positive thing for us. And before people, we just need to remind people that this is just enabling us to be shovel ready, as they say, so we can apply for appropriate grants as they come up. So I wholeheartedly support this.
Further comments, councillors? There being no further comments, I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour, say aye.
Aye.
Those against, carried. Councillors, we'll move on to item 8.2. Got a mover and a second. Move Councillor Betts, seconded Councillor Coates. Councillor Betts, you wish to speak to that?
No, Mr Mayor.
Anyone wish to speak against that recommendation? Anyone wishing to make comment on that recommendation? Councillor Coates.
Just if I can make a brief comment, Mr Mayor, and that was, it's actually in the minutes of the meeting, and I've had at some stage quite a number of people come to me about a problem area in Moonbi on the corner of George Street and Tanglewood Road, and it was really good to read in those minutes that council has been out and addressed that by putting up some large chevrons, but also that the change of speed limits has been forwarded on to Transport for New South Wales. Secondly, in that body of that report, I've contacted the chair of the local traffic committee in regards to the speed limits on Kalala Lane, and although they're proposing to maintain them at the current 60 and 50, no one has actually spoken about the less than 500 metres of 80 kilometre from Gunniganoo Road. So I've also requested that that be looked at as part of the local traffic committee. But thank you for a great report, and thank you, council, for providing that extra safety at Moonbi.
Thanks, Councillor Coates. Further comments? There being no further comments, I'll put the recommendation. All in favour, say aye.
Aye.
Those against, carried. Councillors, will move to item 8.3, Murray-Darling Association Conference at Murray Bridge. I'll have a mover and a second. The move, Councillor Tickle, seconded Councillor Sutherland. Councillor Tickle, you wish to speak to that? Anyone wish to speak against that recommendation? Councillors, we need to talk about who might go to that conference. I know that our Water Director, Mr Logan, will need to be in attendance, and I myself will put my hand up to attend as a representative. Is there anyone else wishing to?
Mr Mayor, if I could perhaps get back to you on my interest in the next few days, noting that the time frame for early submission is the end of this month.
Yeah, no, that's fine. We can do that, Councillor Coates. If everyone's happy to, or the mover and the seconder are happy to say that the Director, Bruce Logan, myself and Councillor Coates the attendees.
Yep.
Tentatively.
Tentatively, yes.
Councillors, I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Those against, carried. We'll move on to governance and strategy, 9.1. Move in a seconder, please. Move Councillor Coates, seconded Councillor Sutherland. Do you wish to speak to that, Councillor Coates?
Yes, thank you, Mr Mayor. I guess some of the changes that are happening in our 355 and other committees are reflection of what's actually happening with volunteers across the board. And over time, this sort of change is going to be inevitable, and we as a council need to be flexible and supportive of the changes. So our volunteers are one of our most valuable assets, and providing them with the support they need to do things that are needed in their communities should be a council priority. And I can see also that I'd like to personally recognise the contribution of the Friends of Tamworth Regional Botanic Gardens for their many, many hours of work that they've put in over quite a number of years. And I believe I read in the report that those volunteer hours were in the value of well over $400,000. So I think that in itself says the value of our volunteers, but in this particular grouping, I think we need to acknowledge them. Thank you.
Anyone wish to speak against the recommendation? Anyone wish to make further comment? Being no further comment, I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Those against, carried. Councillors, we'll move on to item 9.2, Facility Improvement Fund. Could I have a mover and a seconder, please? Move Councillor Tickle, seconded Councillor Rodder. Councillor Tickle, you wish to speak to that? Anyone wish to speak against that recommendation? Any further comments on the recommendation? I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Those against, carried. Councillors will move to item 9.3. Could I have a mover and a seconder? Move Councillor Rodder, seconded Councillor Sutherland. Councillor Rodder, you wish to speak to that?
Just briefly, Mr Mayor, thank you. Yep, like all the other sporting events that we undertake in our local government area, this is another great event on our calendar, sporting calendar, and certainly support retrospective fee waiver request. Will obviously assist that organisation to put on a successful event next year. And I just note there is a under-13 state championship at hockey this weekend, and will further enhance our local economy.
Thanks, Councillor Rodder. Anyone wish to speak against that recommendation? Anyone wish to make comment on that recommendation? There being no further comment, I'll put the recommendation. 9.3, all those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Those against, carried. We'll move from there on to Community Services, 10.1. Australian Country Music Hall of Fame funds transfer. Could I have someone do that, please? Councillor Cade, seconded Councillor Burke. Would you like to speak to that, Councillor Cade?
Just very briefly, Mr Mayor, to say it looks like this transition of ownership has been well planned out and well executed over time, and to have council finally have the deed of agreement to be able to be the ongoing caretaker of such a valuable asset, I think it's a great thing. But congratulations to everyone who had the input to make the transition as smooth and professional as it has been.
Anyone wish to speak against that recommendation? Anyone wish to make further comment? No? It has been a long journey, Councillor Coates, and I think it's a great outcome, and we'll be transitioning in a very managed and well-managed way. So, councillors, I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Those against? Carried. Well, councillors, we come to a meeting where we don't actually have anything in confidential. I have to say, probably the first time for some time. So, councillors, that brings the meeting to an end. Councillors, we might just stay for a little bit. We've got a few things we need to talk about. Thank you for those